We've been waiting for weeks to find out what charges will be brought, upheld, appealed, chosen or proven to be wrong regarding Manchester City. And in like London buses, you wait for 115 charges to come along and then 74 more for some other club comes along. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again, you guys and girls, for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for listening as always. Thank you for being here. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box today. We've got Ronan, Dave and Runs of Cows. We've got Gary, we've got Logan and Rich and Errol. We've got Dave and Jamil and Natty, Tom and Barry. Chima in the chat box. We've got Rob and Tom, Grantley Poos all away. Steve Stone, good to see you. Hope you're doing well, Steve. Do drop me a line and give me an update. Mike, good morning to you, to Pat, to Evan, to Just Saying, and plenty more of you guys and girls too that are listening. And always do, if you could drop a like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff, that would be greatly appreciated. Slightly different setup to today's show. Of course, firstly, different surroundings. I'm currently dog sitting, as explained before. It's been an absolutely hectic week. Obviously being away last weekend and then all the chaos of work this week while going up and down the country. It feels like dog sitting. Yeah, here this morning, but off to Mikel Arteta's press conference a little bit later on today in the afternoon. We'll be hearing from the manager ahead of the game this weekend against Nottingham Forest, where he'll be facing questions, of course, around the team news with a number of players we're going to discuss in the slides. Part two. We're going to be joined by special guests, but more on that in a little bit. Right, let's jump into today's stories. And we start with, of course, the big story from yesterday, which is Chelsea have been charged by the Football Association. Reading from the statement on the FA website, they say the Football Association has today charged Chelsea with breaches of regulations J1 and C2 of the FA Football Agents regulations, regulations A2 and A3 of the FA regulations on working with intermediaries, and regulations A1 and B3 of the FA third-party investment in players regulations. In total, 74 charges have been brought against Chelsea. The conduct that is subject to the charges ranges between 2009 and 2022 and primarily relates to events which occurred between the 2010-11 to the 2015-16 playing seasons. Chelsea has until the 19th of September to respond. Now, Chelsea obviously have also released a statement which spoke of the gratitude to the FA after they self-reported, of course, those charges. They said, Chelsea is pleased to confirm that its engagement with the FA concerning matters that were self-reported by the club is now reaching a conclusion. The club's ownership group completed its purchase of the club on the 30th of May 2022 during a thorough due diligence process prior to the completion of the purchase. The ownership group became aware of the potentially incomplete financial reporting concerning historical transactions and other potential breaches of FA rules. Immediately upon completion of the purchase, the club self-reported these matters to all relevant regulators, including the FA. The club has demonstrated unprecedented transparency during this process, including by giving comprehensive access to the club's files and historical data. We will continue to work collaboratively with the FA to conclude this matter as swiftly as possible. And we wish to place on the record our gratitude to the FA for their engagement with the club on this complex case, the focus of which has been on matters that took place over a decade ago. And that's the statement. So, look, from a kind of personal perspective and my honest opinion, the fact that Chelsea obviously have worked with the FA and have brought forward the charges, well, brought forward the information, of course, they discovered during the takeover, does that mean they should get off with a lighter punishment? Not in my opinion, because they've benefited from whatever has happened that has broken these regulations, that's breached. Obviously, they've the players that have been signed, etc., and so on, and the benefits they've got from those players, and of course, potentially the hypothetically the trophies and points in games that they've won as a result. So I don't think that just because they've collaborated, that should in any way, if a punishment is found to be the correct consequence or the ending outcome, that it should in any way diminish that punishment. Just because you've brought up what you did wrong and you've highlighted it doesn't mean that there aren't potentially severe consequences for that. just look at British politics at the moment. There's a really good example. I'm not going to go into it, but there is a really good example at the moment that has, of course, hit the UK government recently around self-reporting and still the consequences that can follow as a result of that. So if and it's an if at the moment, Chelsea are found to be guilty of the alleged 74 charges, then they should, in my opinion, face the maximum consequence possible. But that's that. Let us know your thoughts, of course, in the comment section down below. But of course, remember, this is an ongoing case and these are allegations at the moment, which is obviously always important to point out. Charles Watt, speaking on his channel, spoke of the details behind the Fabio Vieira loan. Suggestions are that it's a €400,000 loan fee, which actually can be kind of wiped away depending on how many fixtures he's involved in, how many games he plays. And there is around a 70 to 20 million euro option to buy in that Fabio Vieira contract. If that was to be activated, that would make him Hamburg's most expensive signing ever. Which, in my opinion, gives Arsenal probably a slightly less hope than they might have done in getting a sale fee for Fabio Vieira. But he is due to play for them over the course of this season, and we'll see if indeed that leads on to any kind of improvement in his game and a transfer next summer as well. In terms of training, Ben White and Christian Norgaard are both back in action. Sky cameras were in place on Thursday to witness the first training session back after the international break. Pierre Hincapié, Arsenal's new signing, also present there. So Ben White, Norgaard back in training. Very good news, of course. And Mikel Arteta will be facing questions on those players, in addition to that of William Saliba and Bukayo Saka, who were not spotted in the training session. So obviously these guys were not involved, which is a frustration because we still don't know when they're going to be back, if they're going to be back at whatever time. And with Manchester City next week, we've got Champions League game on Tuesday night as well. The fixtures are going to start to pile up. We've obviously had these first 3 weeks of the season where we haven't had 2 fixtures every single week. But at this point in time, it's been okay because we have the depth and we have kind of a week to recover and a week to rest. Now, though, the issue that Arsenal have got is that they've got these fixtures coming thick and fast, and with the number of players that are out already, such key players as well, like Saliba and Saka, for example, and Havertz and the like, it obviously makes things tougher. Now, Noni Madueke had an excellent international break, got an assist, scored a goal for England in their 2 games, obviously against opposition that are questionable in terms of their opposition quality, but plenty of Arsenal's players had really good international breaks over the course of that period. You know that we had Mikel Merino scoring 4 goals across the 2 games that he played. Martin Ødegaard had a fantastic break with Norway. Some of the best performances, of course, he's had in a Norwegian set. In fact, I had a few Norwegian listeners of ours reach out to say, you better be going and talking about Ødegaard's performances over the break. And of course, they were very good indeed. And the big kind of benefit that is not something that we have all that often around Arsenal international breaks is that, touch wood, we haven't had any issues injury-wise. There hasn't been anything that have crept up. But players only returned yesterday. They would have had a session yesterday. They would have a session, of course, today. And then the game is an early kickoff tomorrow. You don't really want an early kickoff after the international break. You don't really want to play a Saturday game. You want to have the extra day's rest and recovery and preparation, but we've not had that. But there is a depth in the team now. There is plenty of players that can be involved. And with Norgaard and Ben White hopefully working their way back and hopefully involved in some way, Arteta can manage the game. And of course, there is the element of the Champions League game that takes place on Tuesday, early kickoff as well. That one, it's a kind of a 5:45 UK time kickoff, 6:45 over in Bilbao. Looking forward to heading out there on Sunday and towards Monday for, of course, the press conference. And we'll have all the updates over from Spain with you as and when that goes down. Right. That brings us to the end of part 1. We're going to go to part 2 and your questions and fingers crossed our special guest as well right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show. We're going to be jumping into the chat box as well and tackling some of your comments, of course, throughout it also. But if you haven't dropped a like, please make sure you do. I uploaded a new video, of course, to the Instagram feed as well yesterday at Tom Canton Media. You can find me over there. So very much looking forward to seeing some of your reactions, because it is an interesting topic, the ownership at the moment, and how kind of the perception around the ownership has perhaps changed too. Vishal says, any news on Gabriel Jesus? Not in terms of anything like mega updates for us so far. And of course, Mikel Arteta may get asked about Jesus. We might get a bit of an update on him, but we'll see. Tony says, will the consequences of the 74 charges, if Chelsea, of course, are found to have indeed broken those regulations, will they be as serious as the alleged 115 breaches that brought charges against Manchester City? Tony, the honest answer is I have absolutely no idea. It's because we don't really know what types of punishments are going to come out on either case. There was an interesting report in the Mail yesterday which kind of went through the potential outcomes. It can range from a fine to points deductions to transfer bans, and that all of these types of consequences are available to the authorities involved. There's also a separate investigation, I believe, going on with the Premier League regarding this Chelsea scenario as well, which hasn't yet come to light. These are FA charges that have been brought, whereas with the Premier League and Manchester City, that was a Premier League 115 charges that was brought. So separate bodies involved in this process. But again, it's ongoing, and we'll have to wait and see. And it could be that the 74 charges end up being worth more in terms of consequence, and vice versa. We just don't really know, Tony. And I'd love to be able to give you a more detailed answer, but sadly not. Audens says, Tom, do you think that we paid around about the right price for Noni Madueke? Personally, I never paid attention to him before he was an Arsenal player, but wow, he's impressed me. I said when we signed him, I couldn't quite get my head around the fee. £52 million is a lot of money. And I think there was context at the time of the Madueke signing, because we all know that we wanted to bring someone for the left-hand side. We hadn't yet brought in a centre-forward at that time. We hadn't brought in any attackers, at that time. We'd signed a backup keeper, we'd signed Zubamendi, and we brought in Norgaard. And that's what we had done. So I think it's worth pointing out that while that all went down at the kind of early point in the window, that I think did paint the kind of Madueke situation in a different light than the context of when we now know that we had signed Gyökeres, and of course we'd signed Eberechi Eze by the end of the season. I think that changed it a bit, but it's still a lot of money, and he's got to do a lot to vindicate and justify that price tag. For me, it was a lot of money, £52 million inclusive of those 3.5 million in add-ons. So to justify that, we need to see a lot. But it was a priority for them. They wanted someone to come in and be, the depth option to Saka. And with Saka now injured at the start of this season, I think we can understand why. Right, let's bring in our special guest, of course. Very happy to be joined this morning by Shane Gooner. How you doing, mate? You good? You well? Sorry, I caught you mid-drink there. That was my fault. I should have prepared better. How are you, man? You good? You well?
All good. Can't complain. Yeah. Glad to be on. Big up to the chat. Big up to everybody who's watching. And yeah, looking forward to getting into it, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate you jumping. Of course, obviously, this come about because obviously I noticed a tweet of yours that disagreed, obviously, quite vehemently with the point of view that I had. Offered the opportunity to come on and kind of discuss where we align, where we don't align, and kind of the reasons behind that. So, I mean, I'm happy to kind of give the floor to you if you like, and if you want to throw a question my way, or set this floor in terms of where your head's at regarding things, then we can kind of get into it.
Yeah, well, like we both sort of know that we're on quite different points of views on this. There's any club that's sort of in the position that ours is in, and people think it's not as bad as it is. We'll have a split in the fan base. It's the natural order of things. It happens to clubs all the time. But yeah, I'm just at the point now, and I have been for a long, long time, that this manager isn't the man to get us over the line. I've never really thought he was. He kind of convinced me in 22, 23, but yeah, when I saw the way he went in 23, 24, overly defensive, and then last season as well, I've never really felt like he's the man to get us over the line. And I'm more confident that than ever. I understand why people think he is. I understand why people get bamboozled. But for me, it's not, So I would say that we probably would disagree on about 90% of our opinions on Arteta mainly, and the club, I suppose. But that seems to be the way it is now, especially online. There's a massive split, but normally that reflects that there is something wrong. It doesn't happen if there's something right in my eyes. That's just my opinion, but that's how I feel about it.
No, that's absolutely fair enough. And I know, you're certainly not alone. Not here, not anywhere. Certainly we have conversations with our chat box a lot about kind of the manager. The manager comes up a lot. And this is a huge season. I think there's a massive chunk of the fan base that would say, you know, if he doesn't win anything this season, how can you really kind of justify moving on in that sense? I've always been of the mind that I think you need to kind of see how that happens before you make that kind of call. But there is, without a doubt, kind of the expectation. I guess, like, for me, the kind of the point that I want to get into is this idea about how where you kind of think that point of view comes from that differs to yours, because obviously the point of view that you raised, which I responded to, was that, you know, there was some kind of ulterior motive, if you like, around why I'm less critical than you significantly are, of course.
Yeah, no, I do feel that's we discussed it, and I look at other press conferences. I look at when Ten Hag was at United, he got pelters at every press conference. He was asked, why didn't you play this guy? Why didn't you play that guy? And I've just seen with Arteta, when someone does ask a tough question, or they push him, i.e. that lady, I can't remember her name, after the PSG game. It wasn't in a press conference now, it was just in a post-match interview. Yeah. When he claimed that Donnarumma got man of the match, and she corrected him and said, no, it was actually Hakimi, and he stared her down. I just watch other press conferences and I see tougher questions being asked, and I get the feeling that, I don't want to say handpicked, but I do feel that the Arsenal press conferences are certainly they're not as intense as they should be, especially around when he lies. He lied about Mosquera's debut being at Anfield. It wasn't. It was at Leeds. He lied about the points total. He lied about us being the best team in Europe. And I don't see him getting pushed on these things. And I just think it's a shame. Because,
yeah. I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I understand. I get frustrated when he says things that in retrospect, you know, certainly in the moment, we kind of had that conversation yesterday, you know, about how in the moment it can be more difficult than I think is obviously perceptible to those on the outside, because people would obviously have their own jobs that they're doing during the presses. It's not just a case of everybody just sitting there waiting for their question to be asked. There's a lot going on as well from a technical and kind of work standpoint. I maybe would argue that I think that maybe it's a little overblown, like the Mosquera thing that you brought up, for instance. Like, that's just him saying the word debut instead of first start. Like, for me, you know, I wouldn't get too hung up on that type of thing, I guess, because it was his first start competitively for Arsenal at Anfield.
But he didn't start. He didn't start.
Sorry, yeah, but in the sense of playing the majority of the game, and so he played so much of the game that it almost sensed that he almost felt like he did start the game. So it's kind of those little things that I don't necessarily get hung up on so much.
I understand that. I understand that. But with him, if it was another manager, I'd go, okay, it was a slip of the tongue. But he does it so often that it is a lot of it. Like, the same people that would defend him making a mistake on these things would also say that he's the most meticulous man they've ever met, that he leaves no stone unturned, that he covers every detail, which makes me know for a fact that there's no way he didn't know that we didn't have the most points in 3 years. He knew for a fact. And it's not just you, by the way. Gary Cotterill covered it in on Sky Sports, and he did it was a separate interview with him, and it wasn't even a quote. He just said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, but Arteta has a right to be confident as Arsenal have the most points in 3 years, and said even he's corroborating it. There's no way he had time to check it, and he had time to check it.
Well, that is an error. There's no doubt about that. You know, that's absolutely an error. And I remember being in that press conference when, you know, we discussed kind of like the situation, just for people's kind of benefit, knowing what I do during the press conference is that I'm typing during a blog situation. So everything that Arteta is saying, I'm typing everything that he's saying constantly. So I don't have the time to kind of break into another tab and start checking things, because I'm constantly.
Yeah. Well, I did when you said that to me. I did say I never took that into account.
No, I'm just saying it kind of from a broad kind of context for people listening. And I think that when we came out of that, I remember us kind of looking at one and being like, I'm sure that's not the case. I remember doing the show the next morning where I went through the press conference and I said that was clearly a mistake. Like, that's not true what he said. But again, kind of the pressing of him, I guess it's because obviously we've won the first 2 games of the season, this season in particular. And I know it's more broadly, you're talking about the history of kind of the press conferences around Arteta. The Liverpool game, again, without being in the room, I obviously you weren't aware of the fact that besides Amy Lawrence, me and her were the only 2 dedicated Arsenal reporters in the actual room after that game. And I think I watched the show yesterday. I think there was a comment that came out saying there's like 40 to 50 journalists. You know, how is no one asking? Well, there's not. It's actually a significantly smaller number than that, you know, in the room the majority of the time. And after Anfield, when I felt personally he had gone too conservative with his approach to the game, that's what I asked him. And I asked him if in hindsight and in retrospect he thought that he went too conservative, because that's what I thought. And so I kind of picked him up on that. And, you know, I've picked him up on things before, like the idea of success and failure and these words that he refuses to use. And I've said to him in the past, like, Man United have reached 5 finals or 3, or was it? Yeah, 5 finals, I think, in the last 5 seasons, won 3 trophies, you know, but their average position is significantly lower than yours. So how do you contextualize what is success and failure against a team that's not performing in the league as well as we are, but is obviously picking up silverware along the way? And, you know, the answer wasn't necessarily what I looked for, but sometimes you don't get the answer that I guess you're looking for. And you also have to think, when you're asking a question, you have to think about what the answer is going to be before you ask it. Because if you only have 1 or 2 chances to throw a question at him, and you're just going to get kind of a one-word, like, I never ask him about transfers, for instance, like players that we're linked to, because I know what answer I'm going to get.
He's just going to give the same answer. Yeah.
So
they all do.
You learn to kind of, you know, what you're going to waste your time asking a question on. But go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, my issue with the conservative thing was, it's not ask them that. That's great. Push him on that. Say, why did you have this lineup? But when he says, well, Odegaard was injured and Kai was injured, so there was no other options. Then what I want is, well, Wanyeri was on the bench, Eze was on the bench, you know, Trossard has played there. Yeah. So to sort of, you know that he's moving it away from a conservative, because I was on a panel before the game, and you know what, the mood was actually good. And I was on a panel of people, if you want to call it my side of the fence, that want him out, the negative fans, if you want to call them that.
Yeah. Right? I just think it's still critical, I'd say, but go on.
But we had, I think we went around the panel of 6, and it was like draw, win. We were going to win there, draw, win. No one had us losing. The team came out while we were live, and to a man, we all switched to lose. We were furious. We knew it was about making a statement, you know, and he didn't make a statement going there. He made a statement that we are not here to, we're here to not to lose. And I just, it was infuriating for me. So that's why I was so angry that I want him to, I don't want to say answer for his crimes. I don't want to be melodramatic, but I mean, answer for what you've done here, because now that you have the squad, you still went the same. And the funny thing was, I predicted Merino midfield, and everybody laughed at me. I said, I'm telling you, if Odegaard's out, he won't play Eze. He's no way he's playing Eze in the 10. He's playing Merino in the 10. Yeah. People will point to what Merino did for Spain, but he's allowed play that way for Spain. He's not allowed to play that way for Arsenal. He's not allowed to take that shot from 30 yards to score the hat-trick. And when he started in midfield for us, I think he started 12 in midfield. We've only won 3 of them. So even if you look at it that way, it was a negative way to put him in there. We've only won 3 when he started in midfield. We've won a few when he started up front. So for me, that's why I just want him pushed on certain things. And I understand that you only get 1 question or maybe 2, so it's hard to push him. But I just feel that when he gives a word salad answer, he doesn't get pushed on it, where the likes of Ten Hag will get, no, you need to answer this, you know, when they get pushed on it. Okay. That's my view. I just don't see it. I've never seen a manager this protected that's gone this long for a big team. I've never seen a manager, and it's not just you guys. The likes of Gary Neville and stuff seem to protect them as well. And I just, it's hard for me to.
But the issue kind of for me is that I don't feel like I'm doing that. Like personally, and I don't also feel like it's necessarily fair to kind of suggest that the only reason I have a certain opinion or aren't going to challenge him is because of some added context. Like, do you know what I mean? You can see what I'm alluding to. Like this idea that I've got a skin in the game or something like that as to why I wouldn't do that. Because that's.
But then it just makes it harder to understand the 100% faith in him.
I don't have 100% faith in him.
Okay, because I thought you said like he's in the top 5 managers in the world, and that like the likes of Inzaghi and stuff wouldn't be able to replace him. And but that doesn't mean I have 100%. I think he is among those absolutely within the top 5 coaches right now in the world. I think in the world, with 1 trophy in 6 years. That doesn't make sense to me.
I would say coaching-wise, he is. I think that we haven't seen the silverware that represents that for sure. But I think the competition, how he's got Arsenal where they have got to, would put him amongst that. The level of progress Arsenal have shown over those years that he's been.
But we've regressed the last 2 years.
I don't think we're 2 years. I wouldn't say 2 years. In less than 2 years ago, we finished with our highest number of wins ever in the Premier League, and that wouldn't really constitute regression.
Well, we regressed massively last year.
Oh, without a doubt, we regressed last year. But I'd point to the fact that we had.
And do you think we were better in 23-24 than 22-23 when we were ripping teams apart?
In 23-24, when we ended the season with the most goals we've ever scored in a league campaign.
Do you think we were a better team, though? Do you think we were a better
absolutely.
team?
That's why the numbers reflected that. Yeah.
numbers
We
don't
also had to play a
necessarily.
Champions League campaign and reached the quarterfinals, of course, that same season. So, yeah, I do think we were a better team in 23. And we had to do that, obviously, without one of our brand new signings that wasn't even there for the entire campaign. And I just think that the idea that last season was regression and that indicates a kind of a broader context about the manager, I don't necessarily align with that, because it's very obvious why Arsenal weren't as good in 24-25 as they were in 23-24 for two reasons. One reason being the 27 injuries that we had, which was more than the other team in the league. And the second one was because the transfer window was a failure, in the summer of 24.
Okay, well, I'll counter that with a vast majority of those injuries could have been avoided. We weren't unlucky with injuries last season. We got lucky the previous 2 years because he flogged the same players, the same 11. People talk about the squad. He needs a squad. We see it now when he has the squad. You will see through this season. We've seen it before when he said he had a squad in 22-23. He'll play his same 11 more often than not. He will play his same 11, the same 11 he wants. He'll play them a lot of the time. If you want to talk about injuries last season, Tottenham had ridiculous injuries, and all at the same time. They had their keeper and three first choice defenders out for about a month. It overlapped. A lot of our injuries didn't overlap,
and they finished 17th.
They won a trophy though.
Yeah, but the Europa League, they played Man United in the final, which finished 15th in the Premier League. It's the Europa League for me is just not a competition I'd look at as a measure of success. I just wouldn't, because of the level of competition.
What if Arteta had won it back when we were in it? He couldn't win it.
No, and I absolutely look at it as a huge failure of Arteta's. The fact that we didn't win the Europa League in any of the years that we were in it is mad. That being said, of course, the Europa League was different in those days because we don't have the Champions League teams dropping in. But losing to Villarreal,
we went out to Sporting and Villarreal. We went out to Sporting. It's not
that's what I'm saying. That's why I said it was a failure in the Europa League, without a doubt, the Europa League. But I'll be very honest with you, that wasn't what I was kind of measuring what Arteta was going to be. Even in the point of 22-23 when we lost to Villarreal, I was like, I don't really know how you can go forward from this point. I really didn't know how he could continue, how any club would continue with their manager after you've just been knocked out by, with respect, an inferior team who've got your old manager. I don't see how on earth the club would have justified it, but they did. And as a result, I'm quite glad that they did, because it's obviously led to Arsenal returning not just the Champions League, but back to title races and back to being amongst the top European teams, getting to the Champions League semi-final. So I'm glad they have. But that earned him, for me, that last contract. The next contract for me, which obviously comes at the end of next season, I think, when his current deal expires, that has to be earned by showing us that he can take us that next step. That's kind of where my head's at with Arteta's future.
Okay. Because when I mentioned regression, I know a lot of Arsenal fans just use points total all the time as a metric. Well, we got this amount of points, we got that amount of points. Yeah. They don't take into effect the games he bottled when it was important, i.e. Villa at home, City away when we had them on the ropes. The lack of when he shows time and time again that he can't get over the line. When we have one goal in our last 7 semi-final matches combined, one single goal in 7 semi-final matches proves that he crumbles at the crunch moments. We've seen it time and time again with him. A manager that he can't hold the lead. He's thrown away leads. He makes silly decisions at the wrong time. I'm not just saying that he doesn't rotate. The one time he decided to was that Villa game at home. Oh, I'll put Kai Havertz back in midfield. I'll look like a genius if we win. And I just look at him. It's a lot more than points regression. I look at the style of play, how scared we are. He's still, to me, suffering from PTSD from 22-23 when teams found us out near the end of the season and we started to struggle. The injuries, again, I will go back to it. We know that he plays players on injuries all the time. I think he needs to be getting held accountable for that. He played Ben White for 3 months when he needed knee surgery to start the last season, and then had the gall later on in the season to say, well, we didn't have Ben White all season. But he played 14 league games on a knee injury. He played Declan Rice on a broken toe. He played Timber with several injuries. Timber came out and did an interview about it. All of these grade 3 hamstrings, there's only 3% of hamstring injuries are grade 3. We had 3 of them. That's from just pure fatigue. That's all that is. And now that he's got the squad and it's in the past, you get a lot of these people that were defending him saying, okay, well, maybe he could have, but you're saying it now because it's in the past. So that's what bothers me. I think a lot of the problems that are inflicted on this team that people use to defend him, he brings on himself. The red cards, we're getting picked on. We're not. We're kicking the ball away. We're dark arts. We're taking ages over corners. These are all instructions from the manager. So it's very, it's very high and mighty. No, you're right. It's very high and mighty for me to then blame red cards when, well, we kicked the ball away. That was the rule. Don't kick the ball away. These players are under instruction to waste time. So I just feel that a lot of the stuff that's used to defend him is stuff that he's inflicted on himself.
I see, and that's why when you said, I don't see why it's 100% backing, and you raise some fair points about that particular area of Arteta, which is why I'm not 100%, because I recognise that he's not perfect. There are elements of his management, his coaching that are not yet, 100%, and that comes about because obviously it's his first job and whatever, and I don't like using that kind of phrase in his 6th full season, but that's just the reality. But the reason why I stick by him right now as being Arsenal manager is because, in my opinion, as a football fan going into a season, if I'm supporting a club that goes into a season knowing it's in contention for every single trophy it is, and Arteta has put Arsenal back into a position where we are in contention for every competition that we're entering now, and that's evident by obviously our records in the last 3 seasons, that for me is where I kind of draw my line. And I know that not everyone does, but that's where I am. I want Arsenal to be competitive, and I struggle with asking them to be more than competitive, because I just think this is sport. Like, sport is a competition, and the vast majority of clubs are not in the position that Arsenal are in, and most fans are not in the position of supporting a club like Arsenal, where we're in contention for every single thing we go in for. But feel free to come back to that.
Yeah, it's crazy to me to say that you're happy to be in contention. We're Arsenal. I'd understand if we were West Ham or something, and we're having this golden period where we're challenging and we don't normally. The bare minimum that Arsenal should be doing is challenging. That's the bare minimum for a club like Arsenal. Yeah. Because the history gets whitewashed, and we don't talk about the fact that we used to be. The narrative is that we should be happy to be where we are. You talk about competing. The last 19 competitions that he's entered, he hasn't won. The last 19 competitions as an Arsenal manager that he has taken part in, he hasn't won. That's not good enough. It's just not good enough. Not for a club like Arsenal. And people can say, "Oh, look,
it's that phrase though, Shane. It's the not for a club like Arsenal." That I can't ever get on board with that. Like I can't. I just can't, because that's not how I view sport. Because that's not how I view sport.
But it's not really to me. That's not really a choice. That is how sport works. If you're a big team, you should be winning things. There's no two ways about it.
My argument is that Arsenal are clearly, in my view, on that track to doing that. And I see them in the guise of a team that are on the track doing that. That's when I say competitive. I'm not saying I'm content just being in a title race every season, not winning anything. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that what I can see from how we perform and how we play and how we beat teams and our record against clubs is that clearly this team, and the way it is under this manager, is currently heading towards that. The winning of trophies in a dominant way on a consistent basis. So that's why I say that's what probably worth me clarifying that point, is that's why I see where we are. I'm not content just sitting here being second every single year going forwards, and that's enough for me. I view what we have done and where we are as a club to being in a position whereby I think we have a great chance of winning things this season and potentially next season. Until I don't think that's the case, I'm happy to continue in the way that we are. So that's where my head's at.
Okay, but that to me that seems, I don't know, when you consider that there's no evidence from this manager that he will win something, let alone win something.
He has won.
Yeah, okay, the FA Cup. We'll give him that. When he won it back, he was 6 months in the job, and he was still,
But that is the evidence that he can do it.
Like, but after a while, it starts to wear out. Then when now that he has full control, it's a completely different thing. He had players in that team like Aubameyang, Ozil, that would take the game by the scruff of the neck. He's systematically gotten rid of all them. He's got them back now with an Eze and a Gyökeres and the like, who they weren't his signings. Let's be clear on that. But if you look at the last 6 years, I just don't know where this confidence that he's suddenly going to switch and he's going to start not just winning, but consistently winning.
Well, I don't think it's a switch. That's the thing. I don't think it's a switch. I think it's a gradual build. And last season's step back, I don't see as an Arteta reason why we step back. That's our difference and point of view. I see it as I genuinely cannot believe that we managed to reach 2 semi-finals and still finish second with the squad that was available to him. I can't believe we managed to get that far with what was available to him. We went up against PSG in the semi-finals, who I think didn't have a single player out injured, and we had so many key players either missing or not fully fit in that game. And going, of course, to finishing above Manchester City still, who only had lost Rodri, really, alongside, I think, John Stones and one or two others, compared to the vast number of issues that Arsenal had. The fact that we still finished second and got to 2 cuts so far, I can't believe he got to that stage with the little resources that he had during that campaign.
Okay, but if you look at the league campaign,
Mm.
we were 7-8 points behind Liverpool early on, before any injuries, and we never showed any sign of catching them before that. If you look at the Saka injury, the Odegaard injury, every time one of them came back, the other one was out. It wasn't like we lost them all at the same time. I think it's a myth that we lost them all at the same time. If you look at total days of players injured, I think we're only third on the chart, second or third. We're not top on total days missed. So the players were in and out.
Still the top three.
Yeah. But I mean, even with injuries, do you think that we have a better first 11 than Crystal Palace, or a better squad who won a cup?
Well, obviously we got eliminated in the FA Cup in that game against Man United, which was
the third round again. Yeah.
Which was just and to be honest, the record in the FA Cup needs to improve without a doubt. But obviously the draws that we've got, I mean, being knocked out by Liverpool, being knocked out by Manchester City, the Man United game was just the most infuriating watch. Like, we obviously dominated that game, created so many chances, missed so many glaring sitters, missed a penalty. Like, you play that game 99 times out of 100, I think we win it. Like, I just, that game of being eliminated in the FA Cup, and Crystal Palace, won the FA Cup, which was a brilliant achievement. I still ironically feel that they underachieved in the Premier League. Like, they finished 12th.
That means
they're a better team than that.
But they don't care. They don't care.
No, of course they don't, because it's the first trophy they've ever won in their entire history. Of course they don't care.
But we finished 10th. We finished 10th in '93 and won both cups. I don't care that we finished 10th. I didn't at the time, and I still don't.
So when we had that situation where, like, Ten Hag was finishing, I think, 8th, would you have swapped situations with them when they won, like,
to win an FA Cup?
It's like, so when I say switch, I don't mean switch seasons. I mean switch everything. Like, managers, players. Like, the next season, you go into the next campaign with what Man United had in terms of manager and players, as opposed to what we had going into the next season.
But that's completely different to the idea of winning trophies. The idea
no, it's not, because it means it's not, because you want to go into the next season as best prepared you can to potentially be in with a chance of winning those trophies. And the reason why I didn't want to swap what we had at the time when Ten Hag won the FA Cup with Man United and when we only finished second with Arsenal was that I knew going into the next season that we were far more likely to win. And I see that this season. And that's why at the moment I don't see the need to change coach, because I see us being in a position where we are one of the far more likeliest teams in our current setup to win the biggest honours. And again,
where's the evidence? I don't see the evidence. No, sorry, I don't mean to cut across. I just don't see the evidence that you keep saying. But we hear this every summer, that we're in the position to go on now. We have the squad, now we have the players. Here's the missing piece. We hear the same things over and over and over again. It's not to do with the missing piece. It's to do with this guy. Yeah, even the Eze thing. We know he's going to play out the wing, out of position. We know he's going to play out of position. We all know it. No amount of media saying, "Oh, Arsenal have signed left winger Eze," suddenly calling him a left winger. Yes, he'll be better than Martinelli. Yes, he'll be better than Madueke out there. But he's still out of position. He's still not being played in his best position because this manager will insist on Odegaard. There are so many things he does that are for his own ego, that are for the detriment of the team. So Odegaard needed to be dropped a long time ago.
Explain to me the idea that Eze playing out of position is an ego thing.
Because he should be playing in the 10. That's where he plays. That's where he's most devastating, is in the 10. That's his best position.
He played a vast number of games on the left as well, and to a high level.
He played 3 games for Palace out the left last season.
But in total, he's played loads of games on the left for Palace. Like, well over 50 games for Palace on the left.
No, but it's not his position, though. It's his position.
Right, but
where's he better? Where's he better?
Position that he can play.
Where's he better?
Better playing kind of like just off in the left half space as an attacking midfielder.
So the 10.
No, not as a 10, playing kind of more so as more of a second striker. I think it's slightly different. I think he's best playing kind of in transition, but close to the centre forward, so he can pick up on those shots on the outside of the box. But we don't really play like
does Odegaard play in the 10?
Plays like right 8, doesn't he? So we don't really play with a 10. No, we play at the moment. Well, this season, to be fair, we played with Odegaard missing from the Leeds game. We've kind of changed the shape, but I'd like to see us play with more of a 4-2-3-1, where there is more of a natural 10, with kind of Rice and Zubimendi playing more so as a pivot. But I still think our best front 4 would be Eze on the left, Odegaard in the middle, Saka on the right, and Gyökeres up front. That would be my chosen front 4 if I could pick a front 4. What would yours be?
But I wouldn't have Odegaard anywhere near the first team. Not with the way he's played.
What would be your chosen front 4?
I would go with I go Eze in the 10.
Yeah.
Alongside Rice. I'd have the double pivot, Rice and Zubimendi. Obviously, Gyökeres up front. Saka, and then I suppose I'd have to settle for Madueke out the left, but that's just a necessity. That's more about getting Eze in his strongest position. Getting Madueke, again, he's not a left winger, so I'm kind of contradicting myself by putting him out there, but it's literally because of the options we have, or even Trossard. I'd even put Trossard out there. It's just, for me, it's a matter of getting Odegaard out of the team because he's just not good enough, and he hasn't been for a long, long time.
Well, I think the start of this season, he was showing a lot more of what we saw in 23, 24 and 22, 23 until the annoyance of the injury against Leeds. I thought he had a very good pre-season as well, Odegaard, and it kind of really did set up potentially for, if you just send him for Norway during this international break where he's excellent. But I think it's worth the question kind of around this, when we go back to kind of questions around asking Arteta, that, you know, seeing the players play for their international teams, and we see kind of the differences in how they play for the national teams, and they're potentially getting more from those players. Why is that not the case with us? That's a question to kind of ask. I think that for me, if our best 11, say if we're going into the Champions League final tomorrow, I still think the best front four is Odegaard, Eze off the left, Gyökeres and Saka as our front four. But if you're not a fan of Odegaard, I get that. Yeah, that's
no. Look, this is where the myth as well is the international break. He got 2 assists and 1 goal in an 11-1 win. He should have had more. If you're in part of a team that wins 11-1 and you only get 2 assists and 1 goal, I mean, it sounds better on paper. Oh, he got 2 assists and 1 goal, but the team scored 11. You know, so it's kind of a, I don't want to say a padded stat, but it looks prettier than it is. I mean, Haaland's stats in that game were good.
You know,
goals, people will say, yeah. So, you know, but look, yeah, well, that's you could look at it that way as well. You could, if you wanted to be hypercritical, you could. But the thing is, with this manager being stubborn, and with, like I was saying, with his ego, not changing the tactics. Can you think, apart from the Gyökeres chance against Leeds when the ball was won back, where he's been played in his best position in the games he's played, where he's been played in, turn the defender and played through? Has there been a chance like that? The Leeds goal was just a lob over the top and he cut inside himself.
Yeah, against Man United, he got played down the left and then he got the ball caught under his feet in the box, didn't he, when he turned inside, which was a real big moment in the game that he should have done better with. But I don't really look at Gyökeres to me. Like, Gyökeres wasn't my number one. Oh, we lost you, Shane. Shane? Oh, you're back. Oh. You're back. Sorry. Yep. Gyökeres was like, for me, he wasn't my first choice, you know, in terms of the summer. But I think the deal that we got was excellent in the end, and Berta did a brilliant job in getting the fee for what we bought for him. But stylistically, it's going to take some time for Gyökeres and Arsenal, I think, to adapt to each other. You know, he's a very different type of player than what we have been playing with for many years. And so it's not just going to kind of click. But there is signs that, you know, you mentioned the goal that he scored against Leeds, the pass from Calafiori behind, the pass that he got down the left half space against Man United where the ball was caught under his feet. Like, these are moments that show me that clearly there is an emphasis to do that. I mean, against Man United, we had 12 turnovers, 12 transitions that led to nothing. I asked Arteta about that in the press. I said, you created 12 moments and no big chance was created from those 12 big moments of turnovers, you know, and how do you concentrate? How do you change that? What has to change to turn those 12 moments where you turn over the ball so successfully and lead to no big chance? Like, that has to change. So yeah, I think we're seeing signs is the answer. I think the example I would give is the one where he had the ball caught under his feet against Man United. Yeah.
But it just sounds to me like we're clutching at straws. Wasn't it 32 minutes into the game when he got his first touch? Something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and when he went at half time, he had at half time when he went off, he had 2 more touches than Saliba, who went off after 3 minutes. I mean, that's
hair more times, wasn't that the quote? He touched his hair more than he touched the ball.
Yeah, but the thing is with the needing to adapt, and we play a different system. We play basically the same system that City play when they signed Haaland, and they had played with a false 9, and they instantly changed to suit him. He instantly slotted in, and he instantly changed to suit. He was getting played through all the time. So that even Pep, who was considered one of the more strict system-based managers, he did tweak it straight away in pre-season that Haaland would get the ball, and Haaland hit the ground running. He was ripping teams apart from the very start. You can say that Haaland's
significantly better.
Yeah, you can say that Haaland's better, but I mean, that if you compare the first 3 games of the season, it's chalk and cheese. He's not that much better. You know, I feel for Gyökeres. I think Gyökeres was a great signing, but I was on panels where people were predicting 25, 30 league goals. I was like, you just need to settle down. He is not getting 25 to 30 league goals. Henry got 30 league goals in the Invincible season. You just need to calm down.
I said he has to target 20. That's what I said.
I think if he gets 15, he's done well. And now that includes penalties. We don't get many penalties because we're always shoehorning the ball outside the box. We don't really run at players in the box. Why?
So, for instance, you know, we kind of talked there about the Odegaard game against Norway when you said, like, for me, 2 assists, 1 goal, that's not enough. It should be getting more. But why is there then kind of the idea that for Gyökeres, 15's enough?
Under this system, I think if he had gone to United, he would have got more. Funnily enough, because the team would have been built around him. He's used to 210s. He's used to 210s that play him in. He's used to 210s that their whole job is when Victor Gyökeres makes this run, you play this pass. When he makes it, it's all built around that. Now it's switched where he's being told, Victor, you need to make this run. You need to make that run. I just knew that the team wouldn't be built around him. And again, it goes back to the manager. And people say, oh, you're just saying it because you don't like the manager. Honestly, I think if we had a Hansi Flick or an attack-based manager, the goals would be flying in for him. But that's just the way it is. It's because they would play to suit him. There's old school managers that play, right, he's my goal scorer. Let's make everything work around getting him the ball. And I just knew that he'd be a square peg being forced into a round hole. As in, you need to play like Kai, you need to drop back, you need to hold the ball up, and you need to make these certain runs. He's not been played to his strengths. I honestly think that with another manager, I'd put it up to 20, 25. With an attack-based manager.
Well, yeah, let's get into that. Let's dig into that part. Like, who for you is that guy? Like, who for you is the guy that if Arteta was to go tomorrow, like, you go, we'd appoint him?
Well, there's two categories to this. There's the sort of unattainable ones, the Zidanes and stuff like that, unless he wanted to come back into football, would be the dream. Obviously, the Luis Enrique's would be the dream. But I'd take a Mancini, I'd take a Conte, not a Nagelsmann, he's too young. I'd take an Inzaghi. There's plenty out there that I'd take. I put up a list on X. Someone said, who would you take? And I put up about 15 managers.
Right.
But it's a lot to do with wanting him out. I've never hid. It's not an agenda. I just don't want him at the club anymore.
You just don't like him.
Ever going to get us. I don't think he's ever going to get us over the line.
Fair enough.
I just want the next manager. I don't want him to have any history with Arsenal. I don't want Cesc Fabregas. I think he's doing great. I'm keeping an eye on him over at Como. He's a throwback. He's letting midfielders play and stuff like that. I just don't want any of that. I want a proven winner who the last thing on his mind is press conferences. Who doesn't enjoy them. Who's not a big fond of interviews and stuff like that. An old school manager. But I'm at the point now as well where I want nice football. So again, a Mancini, Conte, Inzaghi, not so much Simeone. I'd have him in my top 5 if it was necessary, but I just think that's that's just moving to the side a bit. I think Simeone's obviously a much better coach than Arteta, but I think he needs a change of scenery as well. And that actually leads me on to something I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Apart from Simeone, who's on like 26 million a year, would cost a fortune to sack him, and has sort of embedded himself in Atletico, and he does have leagues and he has cups and stuff like that, and he goes up against 2 teams that have won every La Liga, I think, apart from Atletico, up back until Valencia in 2002 or something like that. So it is very hard for him. People would say it's the same for Arteta with Liverpool and City, but it's not really.
Sure.
But apart from him having the last 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Can you name me a top club? And I include even Tottenham in this, right? I include United, Liverpool, City, Chelsea, the 2 Milans, the Madrid, Barcelona, the Sporting Lisbon's, Benfica, all of these teams, Boca Juniors, River Plate, the teams that are the biggest in their league. Can you name me another one that would go 5 years with 1.2 billion and the manager still be there? In your opinion, hypothetically, that would keep him.
I think if they're in the position that Arsenal were, as in that he's not regressed. And I think the club, it looked at last season particularly as like whether you agree or not, it's circumstantial. It's the club looked at it in the sense of that it was just impossible to compete with what they had available to them. And I think Arteta was failed in that market in 2024. But I look at the other clubs and I just think that none of them are doing, what Arsenal. There isn't really an example. I don't think there is an example of another club that's kind of done what Arteta's done and has still sacked their manager. I think if you paint it as he's not won anything in 5 years, that removes the context of what actually happened in those 5 years.
But then hypothetically, Milan are in bits at the moment. AC Milan, they finished 8th, I think, last season.
Right.
So basically the same, right? So if they hired a manager, AC Milan, and they gave him 1.2 billion, and in 5 years he was still only finishing 2nd, do you think they keep him, or would they?
I don't think they would give them 1.2 billion because they're a Serie A.
But if they did, hypothetically, if they got a big cash injection of some oil money, and the exact same scenario, the exact same seasons, all the same, throwing away 4th place in his 3rd season, I'm pretty sure they would have sacked him then. Finishing 8th and 8th, then finishing 5th after throwing away 4th, then finishing 2nd after throwing away the league, then 2nd again. Would you think a club like AC Milan would keep a manager for that long after backing him so heavily?
I think so. Yeah, because I don't think there's an example of a club that has done a manager that has done what Arteta has done that we'd look at and go, oh, yeah, well, they got sacked. But I don't think there is an example, because I think what Arteta has done is quite unique in these last 5.5 years, from taking Arsenal from where they were and putting them back into the contention of being a competitive title challenger, get into the last four of the Champions League in his last season, despite all of those drawbacks and setbacks that we had. Like, I don't think there's an example. So if another club of the stature of Arsenal, let's say, were where Arsenal were when Arteta took over, and that manager took them to here with that investment, I still think they'd keep him. I still think they'd look to, because they can clearly see that you're competing. You clearly can see you're reaching the latter stages of the competition. You clearly see that you're in the frame for all of these titles. So you either stick or you twist. And if you twist, obviously you're shouldering that risk. You're rolling the dice, and there's no guarantee that all that progress you've made up to that point is going to then take you somewhere. It could do, but you don't know. The same as what we don't know, but for me, is that there's more inclination from what I've seen over these last 5 years that this season, where we've spent this 1.2 billion, that absolutely we could win something. So that's why I say I don't think there's another example that shows a manager doing what Arteta has done.
Okay, well, I will respectfully but wholeheartedly disagree. I don't think any of the big clubs would. No, they would. But you talk about this thing of where he took us from. Okay, because let's get it right. Emery finished 5th in his one and only season. Okay, he did. He finished 5th. That's you guys like league finish. He finished 5th. Okay, it was Arteta that finished 8th. Then it was Arteta.
Where was Emery when he got sacked? What position? Right, and where was Arsenal then when Arteta took over?
11th, but it was early in the season. It was early enough in the season. It was coming up to Christmas. So where was he the full second season? Yeah, but where was he the second season? Do you think Emery would have finished where he was? He was only 4 points off the Champions League when he got sacked.
Right. But the second season, which was 2021, right? The extended season because of the COVID pandemic. I think it's a bit of a write-off, to be honest. Right? Like, I obviously all the turmoil that went on, I kind of like most people kind of joke around the Liverpool.
Well, you can write off the FA Cup then, because we won the FA Cup during the COVID period.
Well, I mean, obviously it was the end of the so only the latter stages. It was what, the semi-final and the final. Oh no, it was the quarter-final against Sheffield United. I think got played, and then the semi-final. But that's 3 games. Like, but if we're talking about the course of a whole season, you know, playing in that environment as opposed to just 3.
But every team was playing in it. Every team was playing in the COVID.
Yeah, I know, but they weren't in the scenario that Arsenal were. Every team was playing in it, but every team's scenario is very different. The scenario,
we had Aubameyang, we had Ozil, we had Guendouzi, we had Xhaka, we had Emi Martinez, a future World Cup winner goalkeeper, we had Kieran Tierney. He didn't walk into a team full of scrubs. People seem to paint it. In fact, I'll give you it right. Emery's last 25 games for Arsenal, right? 11 wins, 9 draws, 5 losses. Right. Arteta's last 25 games for Arsenal, 12 wins, 7 draws, 6 losses. 1 point swing. That's a 1 point. And this is all competitions now. It's not just in the league. So if you were to do it as a point-based system, it's a 1 point swing. So we've gone, 6 years, 1.2 billion for a 1 point swing? That's Emery form. That's form that got Emery sacked. We've
gone 6 years from when he took over in 11th to now.
Still not winning.
No, but what my point is, this is obviously, Shane, I think what we both have to recognise is obviously we're never going to find common ground on that point. You know, we're going to go back and forth forever, and we could do, because ultimately until the end result of either him leaving with nothing or leaving with something, we don't have all of the information available to us from his tenure. All we have at this point is a decision about whether you would carry on with him or whether you wouldn't. And that's where we diverge in our opinions, is that you wouldn't carry on with him because of the reasons, which I think, you fairly raised, and the reason why I would keep him, which is the points that I've raised. That's where we divide. I think that what he took us from, like you mentioned the players there. I mean, those players when they left Arsenal, Guendouzi's career's gone nowhere.
Aubameyang, no. He's one of the most sought after midfielders in Serie A at the moment.
But he's not the level that we're looking at. Like,
he plays for France,
right? 6 years later, and he's playing for Lazio, and he's doing all right. But he's just not an example. I think at the time when Guendouzi was here,
he's better than Norgaard. He was only let go because he stood up to the manager. It's no coincidence he got rid of all of the players with attitude and replaced them all with yes men. And you don't win things with yes men. You don't get over the line But yes, man, he systematically
Well,
did
why
that.
did they finish further with them then?
Because they didn't get over the line, because they're better players. Some of them are better players. I'll admit that. Some of them are better players.
Well, wouldn't you rather have better players than worse players that are, yes?
No. They're not all better players. Let's get it straight. I'd say about 30% maximum of his transfers have worked out. If we want to go through his transfers, we can. I mean, most of them have been horrendous. Most of them have been horrendous.
Well, if they've been horrendous and he's managed to get Arsenal into 3 title challenges, he must be some coach if he's had some terrible signings, but getting them this high up the league and getting them to the Champions League. So I don't see, you can't have it both ways. You can't say he's had terrible transfers.
I said some of them. He's had a lot of transfers, though. He's had a lot of transfers.
The majority of which have been good or bad.
The majority have been bad.
Right, so if his squad that he's built has got a vast majority of bad signings and he's getting to a Champions League semi-final and reaching, like, finishing second and competing with City and reaching record numbers,
not a vast majority, a majority. There's a big difference. And plus, he's made a lot of signings, so some of them have worked out. He's also been given a golden generation of youngsters to use. He's been given Miles Lewis-Skelly, he's been given Wanyeri, he's been given Saka, he's been given Emil Smith-Rowe isn't the best.
He's had to develop those players. He's got to coach those players as well. They don't just happen. They don't, like, there's loads of wonder kids that have gone anywhere.
No. He's only had Lewis-Skelly for 6 months, and he's already changed his position from where he's at his best. And Wanyeri has not developed at all under him. He should be a lot better.
Didn't he get into the England squad playing in the position that Arteta put him into?
Okay, and where does Eze play for England? And we're trying to make out
left
he's a left winger,
not 10.
Right, but he doesn't play at the wing.
Well, he has done, but he plays left
not for England. Not for England.
Right,
we're using England as a metric.
He's a very natural left winger.
So do you think Lewis-Skelly is a left back or a midfielder?
I think he could play either role, to be honest. You know, I don't really put these kind of binary terms on players where I think that guy's that guy's that guy's that. I think that different players got abilities to play in different roles, which is why, you know, having seen Eze play, you know, like we bring in Pierre Hincapié, for example. What is he to you?
He's a centre back.
So he's not a left back at all.
No, but he will be played at left back. Of course he will, because we needed a left back, so we let a left back go, and then we signed a player who doesn't play at left back.
Okay, but I guess, again, that's a difference of opinion that we've got, because I look at Hincapié very much as a player who can comfortably play either left side of centre half or as a left back very comfortably. He's got the speed, he's got the traditional style of a full back where he runs up the touchline and puts across.
He said himself he's a centre back.
Well, but he
said himself he's a centre back.
Okay, so what's the quote? Just so I know.
Oh, I don't have it on me, but I have seen it. He said that he's a centre back that can play at left back. I'll find it. I'll dig it out for you and I'll send it.
Yeah, please. I'd love to read it, but like. He played so many games at left back, a vast volume of games as a left back. So
I think it's
close
20%.
to 50 games, well over 50 games he's played as a left back, and he's only 23. So I think he'll play.
Well, then why not just sign a left back? Why not just sign a left back when we need a left back?
He's an excellent player, Pierre Hincapié. Like he's an excellent player who's done
exactly. Had you watched him before? Much?
Yeah, he's one of the players I've been. I mean, it's not just what I've watched as well. It's what Andreas Bert has been watching the guy since he's been at Atletico Madrid, playing with Bayer Leverkusen, of course. He's been playing in a team, ultimately, that managed to go the entire season unbeaten in the Bundesliga.
He only started 18 of those games, put away.
Right. So he started 18 of those games.
Yeah, I think Senderos started about 12 of the Invincible season.
So we're saying he's as good as Senderos because he started a similar number of games?
No, I'm just saying if you're going to use that metric. There you go. That doesn't mean John O'Shea played a lot of games for Man United. He won.
He also just played at left back against Argentina, and Ecuador won the game with him playing at left back.
Okay. But my point, my whole argument is, why did we sign a centre back that can play left back instead of just signing left back? Why did we sign a 6 in Rice and then transition him into an 8? Why did we sign an attacking midfielder, Zinchenko, and then put him at left back? Why can't he just sign what we need? Why did we sign Madueke to cover the left wing when his natural position is right wing? I don't understand it. Why does he have to have projects all the time?
Madueke was
no. They signed him as left wing. If Eze hadn't come in, we'd be talking. He started out left wing, all preseason left wing, every preseason game left wing.
Yeah, but
Downman came on the right. But Downman was coming on as a sub out the right. Wanyeri was coming on as a sub out the right.
What happened in the first game? What happened in the Leeds game? Like, Saka comes off, Madueke comes on, plays right.
What about No, he didn't. Downman came on and played right. Madueke played left. Madueke came on and played left. Both first games. He only played out
when
right.
Saka came off, Madueke went right and then was brought off for Downman to go on the right.
No, Madueke
when Saka came off,
Madueke
went right.
Yeah, but he came on left.
Yeah, but
originally came on left
because Saka was on the field. So when Saka comes off, Madueke is the first choice right winger.
No, but that makes him second choice, number one. And number two, he started his original position was left when he came on. He
If
when
Saka's
moved
not
out
there, he's the first choice right winger.
Okay, and before we signed Eze, he was first choice left winger.
Well, did he start a left wing at Man United? I don't think he did he?
But that's where he was coming on, was left wing.
Right, because we had Saka on the field.
No, not at all.
What?
He tried to sign him, but that's what I saw. What was it? I can't remember who quoted it, but that he had looked at Madueke the previous year because he sees him as a left winger. He played him every game. He's played him left wing, except when Saka went off.
But that's what I said. I said when Saka.
But then why didn't we sign a left winger then? That's my point.
Well, I think he believes that Eze is going to be that.
But so he didn't. Eze was only signed because Havertz
no. So Eze was already being spoken to ahead of the Havertz injury. Was always a player that the club had looked at.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Well, I'm just telling you what I know, but you could disagree with that's fine. Like that's fine. I can't disagree with I can't argue a point that if you say you just disagree, that's fine. But
why would we let Tottenham get so close to him then if he was a target? Why would we risk that? Why would we play Russian roulette if we're going to pay the money anyway and pay the money straight up?
It was evident, of course, that with the Spurs thing going on, is that Arsenal are in a position whereby going towards the end of the window, they still wanted that third attacker. There's it's very well documented at the beginning of the window. Arsenal wanted to sign 3 attacking players. That's what we knew. The Waneri contracts in the summer obviously did accelerate to a degree what was being the talks that were going on at the start of the window with Eze. Then Waneri signed his new contract, despite there being a small period where it looked like maybe it wasn't going to be as certain. The window goes on. The priorities for Arsenal, because of the PSR, or not PSR, FFP, was they had to focus on getting some players out. But when the Havertz injury happened, there was effectively an emergency meeting and said that we want to get players out the door and we still want to get that third attacker in, but we're going to have to prioritize getting the player in first. And that's why they moved for Eze after the Havertz injury. So it could be done.
Okay, so we needed a left winger and he signed Eze, who doesn't play there.
Well, who would you have got to be our left winger?
Lookman, cheaper, plays there, natural position. My whole point is, why can't he just sign what we need? Why does he have to just have something that he can try and tweak if it's not about ego?
Well, we needed a centre forward and he signed one. We needed a backup to Saka.
He wanted Sesko because he plays.
Who is a striker. So he wanted a striker and got a striker. Like, regardless of whether he wanted Sesko first is irrelevant because we just said, why can't he just get what he wants? So why can't he just get what we need? Which is obviously we needed a striker.
Okay, no, and I don't mean to cut across you, right? But he wanted a striker the previous summer, right?
Yeah, Sesko.
Yeah. We didn't get him, couldn't get him. So he said, right, you know what? Just don't get me any then. Why didn't he sign a striker then?
I don't think he did that.
Why didn't we sign a striker then? There has to be someone out there. We desperately need a striker. He can't get the specific one he wants, and he goes, you know what, I'll just go without. If Berta hadn't been here this summer, he probably would have done the same. He probably would have done the same thing if he couldn't get his man. So why didn't he sign him?
I think it depends on how
you
got a
loan. We could have got a striker that's 32, 33, and we can get him for 10, 15 million. Just get him in because we need one. No, I'm not getting my striker. I don't want one. I
don't know who that was.
I'm not using specifics. I'm saying there has to be someone, surely, in the world of football that we could have got some former striker when we desperately needed a striker. And he would rather cut off his nose to spite his face and go into a season with no striker because he didn't get the one he wanted. I'll wait another year.
I disagree that was the case because I think it was evident by the way that Arteta spoke specifically in January how desperate they were.
When he knew he wouldn't get one, by the way. When he knew the board wouldn't spend. So he made out that he's the victim. I want a striker.
What's the benefit of that? Like,
what do you mean? Because are you telling me that he'd go into a press conference, right, and talk about needing a striker if he hadn't talked about it with the board first?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He speaks what he thinks. Like we've already kind of covered the press conference. He speaks his mind so much he makes mistakes. Like I think that with the idea that he would go into a press conference and say, "I desperately want a striker," or words to that effect. We need a striker. We're sure. He would only say it knowing that we wouldn't get one. I'd find that baffling.
Yeah. Well, how many people use that to defend him now? Everybody uses that to defend him. Well, didn't he want a striker and the board didn't back him?
Right.
Why, if he comes out and says that, why wouldn't they get him one?
Well, they tried, didn't they? They bid for Watkins.
Yeah, that bid was never serious. They didn't really think that bid were going to accept.
It was the most a Premier League club has ever bid for a player of Watkins' age at the time. No other club has ever bid £40 million for a 29-year-old.
Villa were never going to accept that. Never going to accept.
Well, Arsenal were never going to pay, quite frankly, a stupid fee.
Then why bother bidding?
Because it was a player. Because Aston Villa came to them and said, John Duran's obviously at the moment in this position whereby he's doing excellently in the Premier League. If we can get a fee for Watkins, we know Arsenal are looking for a centre forward. If we can get a fee for Watkins, then we can keep hold of John Duran. In the end, that worked out the other way around because Arsenal wouldn't offer the 60 million that they wanted, and Arsenal were never going to offer that amount of money because that's not what he's worth. So the reason why Arsenal went in low is if your approach, if someone comes to you and says, "I want to get rid of this guy," we're happy to get rid of this guy. You're not going to go in and bid 60 million quid for the guy. You're going to go in low.
You bid 52 million for Madueke, though, first bid.
No, they had a bid rejected, Shane, and then they went in. The second offer was accepted.
What was the first bid?
It wasn't released. We don't know. We just know that it was. They offered one. There was one offer that went in that was knocked back, and then swiftly they went in with another offer of 48 plus 48.5 plus 3.5. So
right, okay,
which is obviously below the market. I don't personally. I think that's an inflated price, and I've on record saying that. I think it's a lot of money, which he now has to justify. But it's also lower than the market value for the going rate of wingers of Premier League clubs of spending in that window. It's less than Kudus, it's less than Alanga, it's less than Gittins. Like, it's less money than those guys went for. So that's the going rate. That's the market. And Arsenal obviously ended up paying less than the going rate of what those wingers were. And they had that first offer rejected and went back in with another one. Similar to the Havertz situation. Obviously, they went in with a lower bid, got knocked back. Eventually, they paid more. Again, probably more than what most of us would be comfortable with. My issue is that I just can't get my head around this idea of only saying you want a centre forward after you've been told that you're not going to get.
When had he ever said that before? He had never said that before. Never. He always said no.
He's on the record a number of times saying that we don't have a 30, 40 goal striker.
Yeah, he did, but he'd never come out and say, "I want a striker. I need a striker." Normally, say we have internal solutions. We have. Sorry.
He said we were short when we went into the start of the season. He said we're still short.
Yeah, okay, but with no specifics. So why, see, the whole issue is when he couldn't get Sesko, that there was nobody else that he could have gotten. Nobody in the world of football that he could have gotten when we desperately need a striker. But he signed Calafiori and Marino, who we didn't need.
Players, to be fair.
But of course it is. It's his job to identify. Yeah, but it's his job to identify the players.
No, it's not. It's not his job to identify.
So he has no say. He said before, his own words, I have final say.
I didn't say he had no say. I said it's not his job to identify.
He said himself, I have final say on transfers.
Right, of course, because he's the manager. But like it's not his job to identify them. What happens is the sporting director takes the lead in terms of recruitment with the scouting department, of course, the recruitment team, the analyst, the technical director or the assistant sporting director. And Arteta, of course, is involved in those discussions and will definitely have players in mind of his own. But it's a collaborative process. They come together and discuss those things. They discuss the players, the targets. And Andrea Berta's different way of working to Edu was that Edu would kind of be more so targeting players. Andrea Berta's form of recruitment is to target positions and have kind of a holistic look at different positions of what potential targets they can look to. Hence why, when they weren't successful with Sesko, they pivoted immediately to Gyökeres because they'd already been doing the work behind the scenes on multiple targets for different positions. So this idea that like it's Arteta's job to sign, it's not. It's the sporting director's job.
He has final say on transfers.
Yes.
You already admitted that he wanted Sesko that summer. He didn't get him. So he should have said, we get someone else. Well, get me someone else.
But if there wasn't the player out there that they didn't think was good enough, then they don't.
But the point is, when you desperately need if you desperately need a striker, you have to wield a little bit, and you have to say
we can't afford to make a mistake, though, can we? Like if we don't get Šeško in 2024, and pivot to somebody else because we desperately need someone, and we pivot.
We're talking like Sesko's this world beater, and we couldn't get Sesko.
No. I think that the money that Man United paid is mental for Šeško.
So Sesko's bang average. Right? Let's get that straight. So you saying to me that there was nobody else that we could have gone for that was as good as Šeško around at the time, regardless of if you're paying 60, 70 million. That's my point.
I disagree with the argument he's bang average. I wouldn't agree with that. I think that he's a very talented young player, and certainly in that season, in that summer, had shown plenty from his time. I followed quite a lot of Red Bull Salzburg previous to his move to
but there's plenty of strikers that are as good as him then.
Right, but what I'm saying is that Arsenal, when they didn't get that man, Šeško, and bear in mind, of course, Edu was there at the time, who I'm sure you probably got criticism of his tenure at Arsenal, but like as many people do. But they felt when they didn't get Šeško that there wasn't an option that was worth the investment, and it's not only the investment, but you're filling the spot as well. When you're committing that contract to that player, you're filling that spot in the squad for that other player. And as a result, they've deferred it a year. Now, in my opinion, the mistake was if you're not going to sign a centre forward, it wasn't just a centre forward that we needed in that window. We had to bring in another attacker because obviously when Bukayo Saka got injured, we were screwed because they didn't bring in another forward. That's the failure for me.
Well, they brought in Sterling.
Yeah, exactly. That's a horrible failure.
So he would have signed off on that.
Well, it was on deadline day, and Edu came out afterwards in that interview and said we didn't plan to sign Sterling, but
it was irresponsible.
I agree with you. Like it was a failure. The 2024 window was a failure, but it wasn't a failure because of Arteta. It was a failure because of the work that was being done or wasn't being done efficiently enough by the recruitment team. Like that, Arteta signs off on
deflection. It's always deflection. It's always when things go wrong. It's not his fault. It's someone behind the scenes. It's the board. It's Edu.
It's not always
this guy gets away with murder.
If we rewind to the start of our conversation when we were talking about Liverpool, it's not always deflection. I said that he was too conservative. I questioned him in the press conference about that. Yeah. I think there have been in-game management decisions. I think he wasn't proactive enough with his change in the second half. He should have brought players on earlier. And there were points, of course, last season where he did play players on the field too long. He's done that throughout his career, played players too long on the field. It's not always deflection. Like, I don't
mean that wasn't directed at you. That wasn't directed at you specifically. That's just directed at the side that protects him. There's always a reason why. There's always a reason why this happened. It's never his fault. Oh, we need to have a look at the medical team. It's not the medical team. The medical team told him that Saliba had injured. Then it's up to him. He played him. Oh, I asked it. I mean, throwing him under the bus was a disgrace.
Terrible.
But to throw him under the bus then and say he wanted to play. I mean, of course he wants to play. It's your job to stop him. I mean, when you didn't have time for a scan, there could have been ligament damage. It wouldn't have swelled up yet with the adrenaline. It was such an irresponsible thing to do. And he doesn't get my issue is he doesn't get called out enough on these things.
Okay. And that's fair enough. I don't disagree with the point of view that he doesn't take accountability enough in certain moments. I sat here and said that I didn't necessarily have an issue with him bringing up the Eze miss. My issue was with the fact that he brought up the Eze miss and then didn't take responsibility in the press conference for his own errors. Like if you're going to bring up an error made by one of your players, I personally think that you need to highlight your own errors that you also made that didn't lead us to win the game. And I don't think necessarily he did that. So I agree with you. But what I would say is that I think that there's kind of a spectrum. There's a spectrum of out to in on Arteta. And obviously we're very much at the different ends of that spectrum. But when it comes to kind of like the binary nature of the description or the discussion around these incidents that we're talking about, when you say there's always deflection or there's always mistakes, you see these mistakes, which I have agreed with you with, about some of those things that he's done wrong and should have done better. And you think those things contribute to why he should go and why he's not good enough and why he won't ever win it. Yeah. Whereas I see those things as drawbacks in his management, but I personally see that the benefits of him being here, based upon what we've seen over these last 6 years, outweighs those drawbacks. That makes me think that he is going to win something with Arsenal and why I want to keep him.
That's fair. That's fair. But you also said that the reason we had regression last season was because of injuries, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The volume of injuries that we had, specifically key players,
Okay, so did you see the Saka injury coming? Because anybody who watches football must have known that he was due a long-term injury. He was getting to we the season before 5-0 up against Lens, kept him on. I think the 86th minute. I think brought him on against Preston when we were 3-0 up. Absolutely no right. So we can agree that he played a very significant part in Saka getting a long-term injury. Okay, Odegaard when he got injured on international duty, he played him as soon as he came back. Then he sent him off to Norway, who then sent him back and said he's not fit to play. There's been several players that have been sent back when they're not fit to play. Ben White now, I can see him being in and out of the team for a long time. He's going to be one of these ones that you'll be in your press conference and it'll be who's fit and is Ben fit today? Yeah, he's fit this week. He's not fit next week. You cannot play someone for 3 months on a knee injury. You can't do it without there being long-term repercussions. So if you're saying that you don't see these things as reasons why he won't get over the line, I see them as well. If you're saying that there was regression last season because of injuries, well, then he is massively responsible for a vast volume of them because he plays players far too long. He makes them track back too much. They cover more ground than anyone else. A lot of it comes back to him, an awful lot of it. So if you look at it that way, and I, excuse me, I say the same for red cards. I mean, he has them playing these dark arts. Sometimes you get caught, sometimes you get punished. Yeah. So that comes back on him too. So not all of it, of course. When I say these things, I'm not saying he caused every injury and he caused every red card. Yeah. But he has to take a massive part of responsibility for it. And then that does in turn lead to having a poor season. It plays a big part in it.
It plays a part in without a doubt, the volume of injuries, and I've already mentioned this on today's show, the idea that he's not bringing on players early enough. He's not taking enough of an initiative, in my opinion, with certain players when we're comfortably winning in a game and bringing off key players soon enough to giving them a rest. And that needs to improve. And maybe with a deeper squad, we see that this season, and we'll see, come the end of this season, because he's not going anywhere. We both know that. So we're going to see it. We're going to see what this season brings. Again, that's just where we divide. That's just where our paths divide, is that you see all those things and those contribute to your point of view that you're not happy with him to continue.
Well, I do want to just caveat that the Odegaard injury, I know that wasn't a fatigue injury, but he did play him far too soon on it. Sorry, I just wanted to put that in there. He did play him far too soon on it.
Yeah, and there's evidence that's that other players have come back perhaps too soon at times. But again, the point I'm making is that I still think that broadly, all of the benefits for me outweigh the negatives, and that I still see us being in a position under him leading us to those trophies. I think the misconception for a lot of people, I think I saw a comment in the chat as well. One of the big misconceptions I think around, say, those people within the fan base who are, would more align with me than with you, is that there's kind of this idea that there's more love for the manager than there is for us. There's no one person ever that's bigger than Arsenal Football Club. My opinion is based on the fact that I think personally the positives outweigh the negatives with Arteta, and I think that he's going to take Arsenal to a trophy, to a title. That's what I believe and think. And until that changes, that obviously I'm going to sit here and say that I think he should continue and explain my reasons as to why. But it's not like a thing about him. That's what I want to make clear. It's not about him, because Arsenal is always number one. Has to be.
But you can see how some people think that, not about you specifically, but about there is a small number of Arteta fans that they have gone over. I don't want to, but over to the dark side, where they really is defend him at all costs. I'm not saying you. I'm not saying.
I would disagree with that. I wouldn't agree with that point of view. Yeah, you should.
Oh, there is.
I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm sure.
There is though. Like I had someone say to me the other day, I'd rather finish 8th every year with Arteta than top 4 with any other manager. I mean, that sort of mentality is insanity, right?
Yeah.
But they've gone that far.
Why would you take that opinion seriously? Is what.
No, I don't. I'm just using that as an example, and it's not the only one. I get a lot of stuff like that, right? But some of the wording you'll find, I know, and I'm not bad mouthing anyone, but I know that because you work with them. But there's a certain reporter that was talking about the Saliba injury, and when he worded it, he said, "Okay, so they wouldn't have known the extent of the injury. He's kind of covering for it," and he said, I suppose Arsenal could have made the decision not to play him. And I think, why did you word it that way? Why didn't you say Arteta? It's little things like that grind on us, because that's intentional. That's intentional to say it that way.
Well, in your opinion, it's intentional. We don't know.
It seems
it very easily could have just been,
because nobody would word it that way. That's like, and I use this example. That's like the Champions League final 1999 saying, oh, well, Man United made a very good decision in bringing Solskjaer and Sheringham on to change the game. Nobody's ever going to say that. Nobody's ever going to word it that way. But when it's things like that, when it gets worded that way, that we go, well, they're trying to protect him. And I do, look, I'm an Arsenal fan first and foremost.
Yeah.
I don't want this guy here.
That's where we agree, Shane.
People think that the people on our side enjoy this. It's the worst place in the world to be in. It's the worst, and you were there with Emery. It's the worst place in the world to be in when you don't like your manager but love your club.
Yeah,
it's not a nice place to be in.
I get that.
It's an awful place to be in.
It's horrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's an awful place to be in, because you want your team to win, but you know that losing will get rid of them. You know what I mean? So it's an awful place to be in, and people think we enjoy it. We don't. We hate it. My passion for this club is I've had like almost like I wouldn't say an intervention, but when I was young, my mum sat me down and said, it's gone too far. My wife said it before, it's gone too far. You're losing sleep, I've thrown up over football, I've cried, all of that stuff. I'm not saying that I'm more of a fan than anyone else, right? And I'd never say that. What I'm saying is that the reason that we look at it, the way we look at it is because we want what's best for the club. We remember success, and to us, being the also-rans all the time isn't success. And now you do say, fair enough, it's your opinion, that you can see him taking us over the line. Right, and I've seen too much to think that he ever will. And if he does win an FA Cup or something like that, I don't think he has it in him to maintain that. I think he'd find a way to sabotage it, whether it's subconsciously or not. I think that's just how I feel about him. A lot of stuff is based on my sort of dislike of him. I understand that, so I will be a bit lopsided sometimes because I'm passionate about it. But that's where it comes in then. Do you genuinely see us, and in honesty, winning the league this season?
I didn't put us as favourites. But who was your favourites?
I actually had City as slight favourites ahead of Liverpool.
Okay,
I'm looking to change.
So you put City first, then Liverpool, then
I did, yeah, and then Chelsea.
Oh, so you put Arsenal fourth? Yeah.
If they're lucky, yeah. I just have. It's not to do with the players. It's not to do with it. I just feel this season. I just feel an implosion coming. I just feel an implosion.
I put Liverpool as my favourites. I put Arsenal second, City third, Chelsea fourth is what I put. And that came about because I think Liverpool are the best team in the country. And I think that they've vastly improved their team, obviously, this summer as well, with the investment that they've put in, which obviously has helped offset by a lot of the positive sales that they've done, which Arsenal haven't been able to do. It's a whole separate podcast we could do on sales, Shane. But I that's why I don't say, when I say, do I see Arsenal? I think Arsenal can win the league.
Yeah.
But do I think they will win the league? I've put Liverpool favourites. So that tells you my answer, because I think I think Liverpool will win the league. But
see, that slightly contradicts though what you've been saying, that now this is the one. Because you've said that you've seen enough now to believe that this is where we go now, and this is the season where we're going to go do it.
I've seen enough to where I think we can absolutely still win the league under him. And until I don't think we can win the league under him, I don't see no reason to get rid of him.
You don't think we can win the league because you think City are going to win the league?
No, I said I think Liverpool will win the league.
Or Liverpool, sorry, Liverpool.
Yeah, I said Liverpool will. I think Liverpool will win the league, but I think that we can still win it. So even though I think Liverpool will, doesn't mean I can't think that Arsenal could still win it. It's just
okay, but any team can say that at the start of the season. Any fan of any team?
No, they can't. No, they can't.
Yeah, they can.
Leicester fans
could have said it back in the day.
Technically, they can.
They can believe it. They can believe it.
Can Leeds win the league? No, they can't. They can't win the league.
Yeah, but you see, but you believe it and I don't believe it. So if one of them said it, they believe it, then you can't question him, surely. That's his opinion.
Well, yeah, I'm not questioning the opinion. I'm just saying I accept your opinion that you don't think that Arsenal can win the league.
But I'm saying if a fan of any club said it, that's their opinion. They have a right.
Yeah, and I would disagree with them.
That's fair enough. But I mean, that's not good enough for me. That after all this time and all this money, that you think, oh, maybe we can. It should be. We are going to win it.
Well, I don't think that, because I know where both Man City and Liverpool were when Arteta took over. I know that what that money has done is brought us into the conversation back with them. That's what it's done. These 5 years have obviously, that progress that's been made has put Arsenal back on the map with those clubs, so that we're in a position where, that game against Liverpool that we lost was the first time we'd lost to a big six side, I think, since April 23. We're going to places like Real Madrid and putting 5 past them, going to the Bernabeu and winning. Like it's games like that where I go, clearly there's evidence.
That's to me then going, all of this work for a couple of little moments, a couple of
no, it's not. But
it is. What else do we have? What else do we have?
A team that is absolutely viably competitive in all the competitions it enters.
So this big six thing means something to you, does it?
What do you mean?
This record against the big six that we had.
I don't wear it as a badge of honor. No, I reference it as an example of the progress.
Because all those teams have won numerous trophies in that time. They've all won every single one of them.
It's annoying, but I still think that Arsenal have been, other than City and Liverpool, have been the next best team in that group and have put themselves in a position where they can compete now with those teams. Whereas before Arteta came in, we really didn't have much of a chance.
We've been in a position where we compete with them since 22-23, and we haven't won.
But we competed. That's the point. Is this? We haven't won it.
What use is that? What use is that?
Well, their value.
If we never win anything, if we never win anything, there's no point.
But that's the difference. That's not what I'm saying.
So would you take this 5 years over 5 years with 3 FA Cups under Wenger? The last 5 years, would you take this over?
Would I take? But you're saying
3 FA Cups in 5 years.
You're saying that I'd prefer to be in the position. Would I prefer to? Okay, I think the question is. I don't think that's the question. I think the question.
Now, would you prefer to be supporting Arsenal when we've gone 5 years and competed, or supporting Arsenal when we sometimes didn't finish in the top 4, play beautiful football and won 3 FA Cups?
Between 2014 and so when we won it in 2013-14, we won it in 14-15, and we won it in 16-17 seasons. Those 4 seasons that we had, would I have rather been in the position at the end of those 4 seasons with Wenger, No,
Okay,
but
go on, go on.
that's the question, because you can't.
So
you can't
you're going to do
play-
the thing about going into the next season? Is that what you're going to do with that?
Of course I am. Yeah, because Arsenal.
Well, what's the point
at the
of
end of
trophies then? That makes no sense. It makes no
well,
sense.
let me try and make it make sense to you. So
Okay.
at the end of those 4 seasons, let's say that at the end of the 16-17 season, when we were in a position whereby we had, let's put it from a 4-season perspective. So let's go from 21-22 up till the end of last season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where we finished second, Champions League semi-final, League Cup semi-final, and then 16-17, we've just won the FA Cup. We finished, where did we finish in 16-17? It was what, 5th, I think?
5th, yeah.
Yeah. At the end of those 4-year runs, which Arsenal side was more likely to win
That's
Champions League?
That's
No, it's not. But that's how I view it. I'm explaining to you why I'd rather be in the position.
We've never won the Champions League,
right?
So is that it? So your whole metric then is a whole season, a period is based on if we have the slightest chance of winning the Champions League, and that's it. Everything else pales in comparison.
Well, I don't think we have a slight chance. I think Arsenal have got a really good chance.
Okay. Regardless. So that's what you think then is that's the metric for success, is going into a new season and having a good chance to win the Champions League, or is it winning trophies?
The metric of success would only be judged at the end of somebody's tenure. And I look at where Arsenal are at right now. If you look at the tenure of Arsene Wenger, of those years from 23-24 up to 2016-17, where he won those 3 FA Cups, ultimately Arsenal declined and fell out of the Champions League. And you look at the 4 seasons of Arteta from 21-22 to 24-25, where Arsenal rose up to become more viable competitors in all the competitions that they entered. I'd rather be in the position that Arsenal were in at the end of the 4 years with Arteta than we were under the 4 years of Wenger, even though we picked up those 3 FA Cups in that time.
But if
I'd rather be in that position.
Okay, but if we become more competitive in all the competitions we enter, how can you be more competitive in the FA Cup going out in the 3rd round to winning it?
Sorry, say that again. So say again.
So you're saying you saying we become more competitive in all the competitions that we enter, right? But how can we be more competitive in the competitions that we enter if we haven't won any of them, but Wenger was winning them? Regardless of the competition that it was, he was winning them.
Because you could see over the course of those years the decline. You could see over the course of those 4 years under Wenger, hence why so many of us wanted to see an end
on a much less
his time.
On a much less. He had much less budget as well. We have to put.
Well, I mean, the league in general was far less budget. You know.
Yeah, but he wasn't back. He wasn't back the way this guy was back.
Well, he didn't have a club that did an ownership with full control, obviously, during those years. So,
which a lot of that stability comes from Wenger's work, by the way.
Oh, yeah, at no point do I discredit the achievements.
No, I'm just saying. So you like to put everything into context. You have to put that into context as well. The restrictions he was working under, what he was doing for the club, and still winning. This guy has been given everything back in time, youngsters, everything he needs. Let go of the players you don't want, keep the players you want, full freedom, and he's won nothing. That's to me, it's chalk and cheese.
Well, it's chalk and cheese in the binary. In that binary way of looking at it, where you look at those 4 years of Wenger and say he's won 3 FA Cups, that was a more successful 4-year period than the 4-year period that we've just had with Mikel. If you look at it in terms of trophies, and if that's the measure on its own, then 100%. Then you'd say that 4 years was more successful than those 4 years. And I think it was in terms of silverware. There's no doubt about that, because one's had 3 trophies, one had 0. But my point is, it's just a different point of view. It's just how we view things differently. At the end of the 4 years with Mikel, I think Arsenal are far more viable as a Premier League title winner for this potential season, or a Champions League winner for this season, or any cup competition, than we were at the end of that 16-17 run of 4 years. That's how I contextualize it. That's how I view it.
And I understand that. I do understand that. But I mean, he was getting to, granted it was the Europa League, but we got to semis. Emery got to a final of a Europa League. Emery finished 5th. I'm not saying that the football was better. I'm not saying that the mood around the place was better
under Emery.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't. And the same with Wenger, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, if we're going to trade all of that money and time with Arteta to get along gang for a bit of mood around the stadium, it's not a fair trade for me. Now, obviously that's really generalizing it, and it's going, a bit OTT, but I'm just using it to make a point. I just don't. This idea that he took us from the depths of hell, you know what I mean? And this idea that Arsenal we should be so grateful to be where we are. That's what bothers me, because I'm an old school Arsenal fan, and we were a proud club. And this idea, and I see it online, and I know you agree that X is just a cesspit. I don't know why. I only started my X account a couple of weeks ago.
On all spectrums, it's not just people that are critical. It's it's in both senses.
Yeah,
it's for all views. Yeah.
Oh, it's a horrible place. Yeah, it's a horrible place. But you do see this idea, and it seems to be that we should be grateful for where we are. And for me, it's not enough. It's just not enough. And the evidence is there that he doesn't know how to get over the line. I mean, we can say the FA Cup, fine, he did it. Since then, 19 trophies, hasn't won them. You can say it about other teams, that might happen, blah, 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 blah. But to me, I just don't see I wish I did, honestly, see what you see. I really do wish I did. I wish I had hope. But I've just run out of it now at this stage. I've just run out of it.
That's just where we differ, Shane, isn't it? That's just where we differ. Like what I hope that I've achieved from our chat is that I hope I've explained why I have the opinion or why I hold the view that I have in as great as a detail as I can. Because my issue with kind of our engagements before, and that wasn't your opinion of the manager. It wasn't your opinion of wanting him to go. You're entitled to that view, as anyone is. And you raise points that I don't agree with all of them. I think some of them are fair. The criticisms that we've talked about, the lack of in-game management, the contribution to potential injuries, all these things, and I've talked about how, in my perspective, I just see a greater level of benefits outweighing those negatives. My around it was this idea of the ulterior motive thing. That's what kind of got me, and was because I hold these opinions and I explain why I hold those opinions as well. It doesn't come from like a skin in the game or an ulterior motive or having access to press conferences. That's just my job. Like I do. Like I don't get access through Arsenal. I get access because I work for Football London and they're a press organisation. So
would you agree then that there is some major, I don't know what to say, influencers, but maybe channels, whatever, that do have a warped view on this because they have skin in the game?
I don't know.
Without naming names.
How could, as my experience?
Do you get the feeling then that they would be saying certain things to keep the club or him sweet?
But I don't know what that would look like, Shane, because I've never experienced that myself. I've never experienced. I've been outside. And now I've got a job in terms of like a previous career where I wasn't working around football, and now I'm working within football. And in both settings, from having, now being in a position where I see kind of the inner workings, how it goes on, how press conferences work, how, I cover match days or whatever, and, report on the club. I've never been told I can't say anything. I've never been told I should say this or should say that. I've never been guided in any kind of way to not be critical or to not say this. And I can only tell you what my experience is, and that's what I have. Like, if you'd have to give me kind of examples specifically of kind of where you've seen a situation where somebody said something and this is why they're saying it and this is the evidence that backs that up, because I can only go off my own experiences, Shane, about being in that employment. Like being employed as a journalist covering Arsenal. And again, I'm not employed by Arsenal. I'm employed by my company that is a platform, So whether it's the Mirror or whether it's Football London, I'm producing content for them, and that's what gives me the access. It's not the club that gives me the access. So, and I've never known an example at Arsenal where somebody's been like banned or kicked out or.
What was her name? What was her name? Was gone for 10 months. If anyone in the chat, I have the chat turned off actually.
Feel free to send me back the info if you've got it.
No, there is someone. I will get her name. I'll get her name. Someone in the chat might know it. I always forget her name, but she was gone for 10 months after pushing them on something at the start of, I think, the previous season. Yeah. Someone in the chat.
If you've got that, send it my way on DMs. I'll have a look into it. I'd love to see the example, because so far I'm going off nothing. I have no examples of that ever happening while I've been there. I've never known anyone to be, told they can't say. No,
I don't know if it was an official thing, but she wasn't seen for a long time. Is the way I'm putting it.
Oh, so you don't know if she was banned? She just wasn't there.
I don't know if she was banned, but she wasn't seen for a long time after. That's all I'm going on.
I'll have to have a look into that. But
I could have been misinformed, but I brought her up before, and people have said her name. It's just one of those. Gail Davis. There it is. Gail Davis.
Okay, I'll have a look into it because I don't know the story. But as I said, I can only go off my experience. Ferguson banned people all the time.
Ferguson banned people all the time if he didn't like them. He wouldn't do interviews at BBC because they said they badmouthed his son. You know what I mean? So
that's probably a good reason to ban someone.
But they badmouthed his managerial career. They didn't badmouth him as a person.
Right, okay. So because they were critical of his managerial career, it's probably over the top. I've never known Arsenal to do that. So, you know, and I don't believe in freedom of the press. I think, you know, the press should be allowed to question. You know, I've just never been, I've never seen that. Like what some of the questions you said that you should have been pressed on, like, why
the Timber interview.
Like the Timber interview thing, which we talked about that off air, and like, I think it's a really interesting interview and one that.
But that's my issue. Nobody did. There's no way that all the people in that press conference didn't know about it. And that my issue is that I'm pretty sure. That's what I mean. But I'm pretty sure that another manager would have got pushed on it. That's my whole point.
Well, now I'm aware of the interview in a lot more detail because, as I said, I was on holiday in Canada when it came out, and then I wasn't on the tour as well because I had a wedding that I was going to, so I wasn't actually in Singapore.
No, I'm not directing this at you. I'm directing that.
No. But I'm just explaining in a sense that, like,
how can no one bring it up?
But it's a reference point for me now. I'm aware of it for a potential if there's injuries that can be something that can be pointed towards. You know, is this relevant? And I just, you know, I think that I don't think that the kind of the and take this with love and respect, but I don't think the vitriol that kind of came my way has necessarily been vindicated.
Look, I explained it to you. I go.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking in general about like questioning my motives, if you like. You know, I just
but again, it's not just you. It's not just you. You're just an example. Like that's what I'm saying. That the whole press conference, there's so many so many incidents where he does not get pushed enough on things. Or they're just not even asked. They're just not even asked, and that to me, like I said, I used Eric Ten Hag as an example. If you watch his press conferences in the last year of his United career, he was getting berated. He was getting really pushed every single press conference, And then you have, like I said, it's not. I said like Gary Cotterill's apparently he'd be considered, impartial. And he's turning up with balloons and a card, and then he's confirming the lie that he made about the points total.
I think.
How does that look to us?
If you watch a certain video, Shane, you can see my reaction.
I know, I get that, but how does that look to us on the outside? When he then goes on to in his next interview with him to corroborate the lie about the points total. What are we meant to think?
No, look, and you're in. That's what you're exposed to. You know, that's what you are. That's what was shown to you. So. As I said, there's a video. I think it was Charlie from the Sun put the video up of just kind of the background of that. You can see my reaction. Like I'm visibly.
That was cringy. You really was.
You could see me cringe. Like it was. I was uncomfortable with it. Like, and it's just this. I think that this topic. At the end of the day, we're both fans of Arsenal. Like we both want Arsenal to do really well as a priority. That's always the priority. The bottom line is we just see it different how we think they need to go about getting to that goal.
Well, that's what it's all about, though, isn't it?
I genuinely enjoyed this chat, Shane. I think
me too, man. Me too.
And I've been saying a number of times what frustrates me, and what frustrates me about kind of like comments is that so many times, Shane, I'll be doing a show and people disagree or have a similar point of view to you in the chat box. They'll be like, Tom's this, Tom's that, and they never show up. So. I just want to say thanks for showing up because
no, man, I'll always show up. Listen, this is what it's all about. And look, we had our conversation on through messages. I know I go OTT sometimes, but that's just literally the style of the channel and my humor most of the time. You know what I mean? It can go too far. I understand that, but there's no hard feelings. You invited me on. We sorted it out last night, like men, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. You know what I mean? So big respect to you for still having me on, regardless of what had happened before.
Yeah, no, I think I believe in second chances. So, I don't like people getting cancelled. I don't believe in that. I think it's the whole point is that there's discourse out for a reason, and you got to try and spit. But social media kind of just unfortunately promotes a vitriolic place, sadly. So, but yeah, I think we.
Well, listen, the approach I've taken, it's not one for you don't get subs and likes out of it if you're as sort of brutally honest as me. It doesn't work that way. If you go down the whole hyper positive route, you can climb very quickly. So I'm not in it for that. I only literally started it to try and have conversations with Arsenal fans. That was it. That was the only reason I started it, and it's.
I think Well, just from the other side, like the growth of this channel was mainly came about just the transfer shows that we did. We see like growth during the transfer window mainly, and then throughout the course of the season, there's not as much growth. Like, so it's just kind of like you just find like your niches, I guess, about, and doing the 8 a.m. shows and doing the morning shows definitely help with that. So I don't think the channel's grown as in certain way because of like a certain agenda. Like we have a lot of people in the chat box that don't agree with me. So, but they keep coming back because they just enjoy the discourse. You're happy to come on here. Don't subscribe to my views, but happy to come and have a chat. So that's for me. If everyone believed the same thing, it'd be boring. So I enjoyed.
I don't mind having a debate with someone who clearly knows football, right? Because it's different between like with the likes of Igal. I don't mean to name, but I won't go on a stream because he doesn't know anything about it. So it's different to having a debate with someone who knows what they're talking about. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I've not seen the debates with it. I know Igal, but
I just don't bother. I don't bother.
Fair enough. I just think that the conversation that we've had has been productive. So I think we've kind of got to the bottom of where 100%. We both are and where we both divide. But I appreciate your time, Shane. If you want to give people your channel a shout out, of course, please feel free. Tell people where they can find you and what shows you got coming up.
Well, I don't know, but I should tell them where to find me. But
feel free. You don't have to.
Shane Gooner, obviously. I'll be going live at, I think it's 10:30 today. I normally do a breakfast show, and if you want to give a sub, do. If you don't, absolutely no worries whatsoever. I'm pretty sure that your chat will be vehemently disagreed with everything I said. I didn't even look at the chat, to be honest with you. But listen, it's all banter. It's all good fun. Absolutely no hard feelings. But listen, man, thanks so much for having me on. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we did it.
I'm glad we did it as well. 100%.
And I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Speak to you soon. A massive thanks to Shane for coming on. I know that he's not going to be your cup of tea. I get that. And I get those points of view on. And I know this is a very different type of show than what we usually do. But let's be real. When we've done these shows before and we've done phone-ins or we've done, kind of like debates, and I've said to people in the chat, well, come on then. Come on the show. Let's have a talk. Question me on your views. And what happens? They don't show up. They flitter away. They disappear. And people in the chat box are going, where's so-and-so gone? Where are they? Why have you not come on the show? Well, Shane came on and we had a chat, and it was a really good chat. And I know the vast majority of you, were keeping it pretty clean. Sadly, some of you, I think, didn't keep it as respectful as I would have hoped. But that's on you. That's not on me. But it's really important to expose yourself to as many different views as possible, because then you can better formulate your opinion, and better get an understanding of why people have the different views that they have. So, look, I really do. Yeah, exactly. Where's Martin? We're still waiting for Martin. We still don't know where he is. But yeah, thank you for listening. This isn't going to be the norm. Obviously, we don't do this every day, and it's a very different type of show than we usually have. So the regularly scheduled programming, and get that sentence out, will of course resume tomorrow morning. And I'll be back in the studio tomorrow, and then on Sunday morning, I'll be back here as well as as I'm still looking after the little one who's been sleeping. He must have been trying to sleep. I've been shouting about Arsenal for the last however long. But thank you. Where am I? I'm at the in-laws, Joe, dog sitting today. So this is a background you would have seen before. But I'm now going to go off to the press conference where I'm going to ask questions that I've been told to ask. Only joking. I'm going to ask them. It's going to be an interesting one, this one, because there's a lot of interesting kind of takes from the international break. There's a lot of injury news to discuss, and I think there's some question marks about the system and the coaching and the fallout from Liverpool and all of that. So I look forward to seeing what he's got to say. But that's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Appreciate your time. Apologies that it's gone on for an hour and 43, but some of you enjoy the longer shows, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm looking forward to speaking with you more tomorrow. If you are new and you now have fallen in love with my amazing views on Mikel Arteta, you can, of course, subscribe if you would like. And equally, if you're not, you don't have to. But I really do look forward to further conversations, of course, around this topic. But I think you kind of know where I stand and where Shane stands and where others, I'm sure, stand as well. But thank you for listening. Thank you those of you that kept it clean and kept it respectful. Always appreciate that. And I'll be back with you tomorrow. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.